Hello, today we are going to learn how I make a granny square. I'm going to start with the slip knot, and I chain 3. Now this is actually, you might want to think of it as chain 1 to be what we work into, and then 2 chains as my turning chain for a double crochet. So chain 3. And we're going to do 2 more double crochets. Remember that first 2 chains counts as a double crochet as well. Chain 2. Do 3 double crochets into that first chain next to the slip knot there. Chain 2. 3 double crochets into that first chain space, or first chain, chain 2, and 3 double crochets. That's our first round almost done. You see we have 3 corners. We just need to make our 4th one. Now the way that I join is to chain 1, and then do a single crochet into the top of your turning chain, like that. And this puts the hook kind of in the middle of that corner. So I'm going to do chain 2 for my first double crochet there. I'm going to do 2 double crochets into this big hole here for a total of 3, including the turning chain. And now I'm going to go around for my second round here. So I'm going to do 3 double crochets into the next corner. Chain 2 and 3 double crochets in that same corner. Okay, I'm going to do the same thing into the next one. So 3 double crochets, chain 2, 3 double crochets, all into that same hole there. We'll do the same in the next corner, 3 double crochets, chain 2, 3 double crochets. This takes us to our starting corner. You can see there's 3 double crochets there already, counting that turning chain as a stitch. So we still need the 3 double crochets, chain 2. So we'll do our 3 double crochets. And instead of the chain 2, again, we're going to chain 1 and then join with a single crochet in the top of the turning chain. So there's 2 rounds. Let's do one more. Chain 2, that's our turning chain. Do 2 double crochets into this big hole here. Now we're going to work into the side. I'm going to do 3 double crochets into this hole here. And then we're going to do a corner on top of this corner over here. So 3 double crochets, chain 2, 3 double crochets. Now we have a side section here. We're just going to do 3 double crochets into that hole there. And now we're at a corner again. So 3 double crochets, chain 2, 3 double crochets, all in the same space. So 1, 2, 3, chain 2, 1, 2, 3. We're on a side, we're going to do 3 double crochets there. We're on a corner, we're going to do 3 double crochets, and then we're going to chain 2 and do 3 more double crochets. We're on the home stretch now. We're on a side, so 3 double crochets. And now we're on the corner we started with. So you see there's 3 double crochets there already, including the turning chain. So we need to add 3 double crochets. And if you were continuing on, you would do your chain 1 and then join with a single crochet. But I'm going to finish, so I'm going to do chain 2 and join with a slip stitch. Ooh, a little splitty there. There we go. Let's cut our yarn. I'm going to yarn over and pull the loop through. Have a knot there. Zooming in now, I'd like to point out some of the different features of this granny square. First, you've probably noticed if you've done granny squares, I did not put any chains on the sides. I don't like the giant hole look of granny squares, which is funny because I love granny squares and they are by nature holy. I just like to keep the holes as small as possible. And that's why I don't do any chains on the sides. I do them on the corners just because that's the best way to get around for this pattern. But if you want to put chains there, you can go right ahead. This is your project, you do what you want. This pattern that I just did without the chains and the way the corners worked is the one that is written in all of my granny square based patterns. I have that pattern in there just as a reference, as something you might want to try out. If you like to do your granny squares with extra chain spaces, or if you want to start with a magic loop in the middle, or some other starting, maybe a chain 4 ring or something, whatever you want to do, the patterns will all still work. The granny square is a very forgiving pattern that way. So I'd like to point out one last thing, and that is the corners where we started. Now the reason why I join with a chain 1 and then single crochet is that gets the hook sort of to the middle of the corner, so it can be the base of the first stitch of this cluster. So you work your way around and then you do this last cluster and you do your chain 1, join with a single crochet, and here you are now at the base of this cluster. And I just like how that works out. Okay, let's weave in some ends. So I've got my yarn from the middle, the starting end, onto a needle here. And as I mentioned before, I don't like there being big holes. And I don't know, for some reason, I really don't like that hole in the middle the most. So what I do, and again, if you used a magic loop, this would take care of itself, but I find it too tricky. You do you. So I'm going to start where the yarn is coming out of these stitches, and I'm going to go under the bottom of these double crochets like that. I'm going to do that all the way around. Until I get back to the start. So I've gone under all 4 sides here. Now I'm going to go under 3 more bars. You see in this starting one, hopefully, there's 5 bars. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, it's kind of hiding, and 5. I'm going to go under 3 of them. So 1, 2, 3. And now I'm going to pull like a drawstring to get that middle closed. Now to keep that locked in place, because it won't stay, this is very slippery yarn I'm using, I'm going to skip a bar and go back and weave in under the sides again. I kind of wish I'd left a slightly longer end, but yeah, that's okay. All right, so we're on the 3rd side. Here's our starting there. So I'm going up this side. I'm going to go through under all of the bars except for the last one. I just find it gives better results. And that should hold this nice and tight. Now I'm going to make my way up this double crochet like that. And I'm going to go back and forth under this corner. This is another reason why I start my corners the way that I do, that first starting corner. It'll be more apparent on the outside end we weave in. but it always makes sure that your end is at a corner, no matter how big your square is, which I like. Okay, so that's good. I've kind of tugged it a little bit so that it's nice and flat. Take the needle out of my mouth. Okay, so what I'm going to do here to cut the end is I'm going to tug a little bit and cut it as close as I can without wrecking the square. And then just do this. And that pulls the end underneath all nice and pretty. Let's do the outside end now. Okay. So the way that I do the outside end, and I feel like I should say I do this the same way every single time. It makes weaving in the end so much easier because you do it automatically, right? So there's this bar here. I'm gonna put my needle under it first. Then I'm going to work my way down the back of that turning chain and under a bar at the bottom. There we go. You want to pull it tight and then adjust so that you haven't collapsed any area stitches. So we're going to go back and forth under this top corner here. Good enough. And then we're going to go down this double crochet, and I'm going to go back and forth under it. Now, if you're using yarn that is not as slippery as mine, this is overkill probably. Although if you do it, you're not going to have your ends coming out. But if you're using a slippery yarn like mine, you want to weave it in as securely as you can. So I'm going to pull it a little bit, I'm going to snip it, and then adjust. And there we have a nice 3 round granny square. Now, no matter how big your square is, if it's all one color, you'll just have the 2 ends to weave in, and it'll go exactly the same way. Thanks for watching.